Yes, I'm back outside St James's Park, and unfortunately it's another quite disappointing atmosphere inside this club, and another video where I'm trying to pick the bones on what went wrong down at Brentford and what is generally going wrong, why we seem to be playing so well against the top six and just not showing up against the rest. If you're curious, Newcastle fans, do me a little favour and make sure you stick around for a lovely little dollop of black and white banter. Welcome back to Black and White Banter, lads and lasses. I hope you are all well. I hope you've just about got over that second half in particular down at Brentford. I don't know whether I have. I'm just hoping that some of you have. It's been an indifferent week, hasn't it? But before I get into that, Newcastle fans, do us a little favour. Drop Black and White Banter a little follow on YouTube and across all socials. I've just wrote my last word blog. I do it after every match on Facebook and Twitter. Make sure you check Black and White Banter out. Much appreciated. That's, again, as I said on my last one outside here, that's about as positive as this might get. Look, that second half was an absolute disaster. The first half, you could argue the goals we conceded were, but something is not quite right. And I said on my match vlog, if you haven't already seen it, because I did unfortunately travel all the way down to Brentford, that I've never seen a Newcastle away end clear as fast as it did on Saturday. That would suggest a bit of a tide is turning. And I'm going to, before I go any further into this video on some key points like I always try and do, I just want to say Eddie Howe still very much has my support. I do not think football should be as simple as, oh, we're going through a bit of a bad patch, the worst of his time so far, let's get rid and change manager. There are a lot more layers to why I think we should stick with a manager that has brought us success and has proved that he can, than just sack and bring somebody else in. That's going to split opinion, but without further ado, let's get into some finer points of firstly why I think that Eddie Howe actually got it massively wrong on Saturday, and what is going on with our form against certain teams to others. So let's just get into it. Well, yes, I might have started this video by saying that I am showing my support to Eddie Howe. That's totally fine, but what I will always try and do is look at things as level-headed as possible. And I personally, which was frustrating for me on Saturday, thought that Eddie Howe got things massively wrong against a team not only with the best home form in the league this season, but also against a team that have certain very strong players in certain positions. And that's where I'm going to start with this. Lewis Hall. We all know Lewis Hall is a fantastic footballer. He seems to be getting better. That England spot could very much be his in years to come, and he has probably been one of our brightest sparks this season, arguably. I thought Lewis Hall on Saturday, to a degree, was hung out to dry. Could he have done better with his defensive work? Yes, I think he could. A left footer against a left footer is very difficult, and Brian Mbeumo, a man we've been linked with, wouldn't mind him in our football club, is very, very good this season and has a knack for scoring goals and getting assists, and he's dangerous, and he's a player that a lot of clubs are looking at. But by Eddie Howe bringing in Harvey Barnes, I thought that was a poor decision in a match where Lewis Hall needed way more cover. We look at some of the best left midfielders to grace Newcastle, the Laurent Roberts, the Hatton Ben Arthurs, you could say, the David Ginolas. What do they all have in common? They don't like to defend. What does Harvey Barnes generally not have in his locker as much as Joe Linton or Joe Willock or Anthony Gordon? It's defending. My God, does that boy know where the goal is? And when he rifled that equaliser in the first half to make it 2-2, you just felt like Harvey Barnes could have done that with his eyes closed. But that was not the match against one of the most informed wingers in the league to leave so much gaping space. And I'll share some graphics on the screen for Lewis Hall to try and pick up the pieces, still learning his trade and fight against Mbeumo the whole match. And whilst the second half down that right-hand side, there weren't as many problems caused, some of the moments in the first half, which I have shown on the screen, just showed a massive amount of space. And look, I'm not going to talk about Harvey Barnes giving the ball away for their second goal. It happens. Players make mistakes. He more than made up for it by putting the ball in the back of the net at the other end. Job's a good one. We'll brush off and start again. Everything mainly went wrong in the second half. But by Eddie Howe playing Harvey Barnes, who he hasn't really brought in for a match like this. Yes, we played Liverpool on Wednesday. I just think and I'll touch on more changes to the starting lineup than he made. I think he got that one wrong, and Joe Linton, who we know is brilliant defensively when he wants to be, Anthony Gordon, when he does have that fire in his belly, is pretty nifty in a defensive capacity, and even Joe Willock, who was brought out of the team, even Joe Willock can offer something a little bit more than Harvey Barnes, who just wants to score goals. And I felt for Lewis Hall, and I'm not saying Harvey Barnes coming into the team is a bad thing. I think it's about picking and choosing your battles, and everybody in that stadium knew who Brentford's most dangerous man was. It was Brian and Mbeumo, and Lewis Hall on paper didn't have his best match on Saturday, but he certainly wasn't helped. Right, the wind has just picked up dramatically, and my phone has nearly just fallen over the stairs and smashed into a million pieces, so I'm back on the selfie stick because it is windy. Next point for me has to be the one that most Newcastle fans leaving the G-Tech Stadium were probably thinking, what if? And that is Tonali and Gordon being dropped for this game. I don't think it made much sense at all, and I think when we finally seen a bit of a balance that we didn't think existed between Tonali and Bruno offering something in that midfield, when one sits, one goes, it made very little sense for me to drop them for an away game against one of the most informed home teams in the Premier League. Sandro Tonali has proven on Italy duty that he is more than capable with the engine he has. That's just what sort of football he is, of playing on a Wednesday then on a Saturday. We weren't made aware of any injuries, we weren't made aware of any knocks, and I just think after the performance he put in away at Crystal Palace, in another cagey away game where the home team are going to be on your backs, Tonali was arguably our best player, and his defensive work went some way to almost getting us a win in what was a very poor attacking performance. Not only that, I thought at Brentford on Saturday there were so many gaping holes between our midfield and our defence, and I'm not saying our defence that was any excuse, because some of our defending was some of the worst I've seen under Eddie Howe. But Tonali not being in there, I thought we lost an engine, and whilst Bruno might have the most duels and his defensive work might be okay, I still personally think that that was a poor decision from Eddie Howe. So let's talk about Anthony Gordon. I talked in the week, Anthony Gordon finally had the fire back in his belly against Liverpool. He got the goal, and we just saw a different Anthony Gordon, running a Trent Alexander-Arnold, doing things, feeling confident. That sort of player that was made every single defender's last season's lives a living hell coming up against him. That was amazing to see, and I think to then drop him for this match, and then for him to look so bright when he came on as a substitute in the second half, was just something. Every single Brentford defender will have been talking about Anthony Gordon in the build-up to this game after watching that thrilling 3-3 draw on Wednesday. And I just think, looking at Tonali and Anthony Gordon in isolation as two players who could have really influenced that massive away game on Saturday, he's tried to be cute. Look, this is where there's a bit of leeway, and I always see things from both sides. Eddie Howe has a squad that he did not have last season. I looked at our bench in the last couple of games and going, do you know what? That's the tastiest bench now, Callum Wilson and Trippier are back, that we've had for some time. But by making so many changes, like the Tonali, who's a massive player, like Anthony Gordon, who's always going to be one of our biggest players, I just thought he tried to be too cute with squad rotation. And don't forget, we have a week's rest now till Leicester at home on Saturday. It was just decisions for me from Eddie Howe that I think he got wrong, and it did affect this match. I'm not making excuses for the defending, but in terms of isolation, he just got this one wrong. He brought Almiron on in the second half, another one that really baffled me. Almiron will still have fans, and I got a comment on my last YouTube video saying he's better than Gordon and Barnes. I don't know what Almiron you've been watching over the years, but everyone's entitled to their opinion. Why does Almiron get a look in a game that we chase him when he hasn't been good enough all season? We know he offers legs. We know he scored for Paraguay recently. I'm aware of that. But I just don't think you can justify a player who has not played any minutes suddenly being chucked in the fray. And every manager is allowed to make glaring mistakes. And I thought Eddie Howe in team selection on Saturday made a fair few. I think the wind's calmed down now. So if this phone tipples, I won't be doing any more videos. This is the risk you take to make a video look a little bit more pretty. So that's why you should whack the follow. Now look, the wider conversation, this whole stepping up their game against the big six to low teams in the league. It's frustrating me, it's frustrating you, it's frustrating every single person. Alan Shearer ranting about it on a match of the day. Every comment on this is justified. I'm going to stay a little bit short of suggesting that the players are only putting themselves in the shop window in those bigger matches because they're using us as a massive stepping stone. I see enough fire in the belly of Bruno, Joe Linton, Joe Willock, when he plays at times, Isak when he scores. I think these players do have a place in the heart for Newcastle and want to succeed, but I think it's a mix of both. I think St James's Park has helped massively, because what have we noticed about the 5 teams we've played from the top 6? Liverpool, Man City, Tottenham, Arsenal were all at St James's Park. The only one we've lost, which was only narrowly, was Chelsea away from home. And I look at the fixtures of who we've played from the less of the top 6 compared to those top 6. Southampton, Brighton, Wolves, Nottingham Forest, Palace, West Ham, now Brentford. So many matches there, 30 that we could have had. And if you look at how many we've gained from those matches, it's simply not good enough. I'm also going to fall short of fans that say that Eddie Howe's being found out. I don't believe that, because if you look at what points we could have got from those matches, and I've wrote all this stuff down and it's all opinion, but I look at the Brighton game, we should have got at least 1 point from the Brighton game. I look at Everton, where Gordon missed a penalty, we dominated for ages. I look at West Ham, 1 point minimum with the chances we missed in the first half. West Ham would have caved, I don't care what anyone says. And as bad as we were at Crystal Palace, we conceded with the last kick of the game on a cross that we should have defended, and we should have got all 3. Well, where does that leave us in the league? I understand that every single person watching this video is going to say, but Matthew, that's ifs, that's buts. But you know what? Those matches where we haven't necessarily been found out, and I don't buy that at all. We could have had 7 to 9 points on small margins, and everybody knows, as I said in my last word blog, that the Premier League is a cruel mistress. The Premier League is made up on fine margins, and unfortunately for Newcastle this season, whether it's Alexander Isak running round the keeper and not tapping it in instantly and getting the keeper's hand to the ball, whether it's West Ham, Gordon missing a chance, Isak blasting wide when he's clean through after chesting the ball down, all fine margins. Don't even mention that Anthony Gordon penalty miss in front of his ex-team in Goodison Park. These are all fine margins where the decision making has not been quite good enough, and we haven't been quite at the races, but that league table would look a little bit different. And again, I know, and this is where I'm probably sounding like I'm on a passionate rant, but I'm trying to speak as factual as possible. So many Newcastle fans are going to say ifs, buts. That the happy clapping term is getting a bit ridiculous on social media for me. The point I'm trying to make here is, yes, our performance levels against those lesser teams have not been good enough. I'll acknowledge that, you'll acknowledge that, but I'm going to fall massively short of wanting a manager change, because whilst our team is staled and not really progressed in terms of transfer windows, which we're well aware of. Mitchell comes in, it was too late, he didn't have a chance to put that stamp on things, and previous windows, players have been signed, mistakes have been made. I'm looking at Harvey Barnes, who hasn't really come into the team for 35 million. Tonali, well, the ban was unfortunate. Sven Botman, he's been missing. Callum Wilson, he's been a non-existent player for us. And there's going to be little things that Eddie Howe's got wrong, and I've talked about massive mistakes he made at Brentford on Saturday, but I still have faith in this group of players. And if I look at the season as a whole, we'd be sitting level, in my opinion, on points with Arsenal, who many people are still saying in the title race, if things had gone better in some of those matches I've mentioned. And anyone who thinks that we've been found out, I would love to ask the Brentford players at half-time on Saturday whether they had every answer to Newcastle when it was 2-2, because I only saw one team in that first half who looked probably is likely to go on and win the match, and that's what was most frustrating, and that's what every single member of management and every single player needs to sort out if we are going to allow this season to be anything, or if we're going to stay win, lose, draw, lose, draw, lose, win, win, draw, every single sequence under the sun, we will finish mid-table, and any slim hopes of European football will be extinguished. But I look at our season and the fixtures to come, and I don't believe the season's done. That's exactly why I don't think a manager change is the answer right now. We work on things, we get better, and some of the defending I've seen in the last couple of matches is ironically just as we've started scoring more. You couldn't write it. Defensively pretty resolute all season, and suddenly, when we start scoring goals, we start conceding a shit ton. That needs working on ASAP. We've got a massive game at Leicester. We've got a cup quarter-final. If we beat Bromley in the FA Cup, Newcastle fans, just for perspective, and we do win some fixtures over the Christmas period with Villa and Leicester at home and indifferent Man United away on the 30th, we could still be going into February in 2 cup competitions, sitting a little bit prettier in the league. And we all know, this season especially, how tight the Premier League is. Saturday was not good enough. I think Eddie Howe got some decisions wrong. But aside from that, in that second half, these players need to take a long, hard look at themselves in the mirror and say, do you know what? How much do you want to fight for this football club? It should not matter who the opposition are. Every match is important in terms of getting this club where every single one of them ambitious footballers, your Brunos, your Joys, your Isaacs, want to be, and that's playing against Europe's best like we've already had a taste in the Champions League. Things need to improve on that second 45 that we witnessed down at Brentford, because me and every single away fan walking off the concourse and every fan watching at home knows that that was simply not good enough. Things to work on, things to improve on, but as always, Newcastle fans, please try and keep the faith. And please, as I always ask, drop that follow, drop that like, whack that subscribe, but I want to know your thoughts in the comments. But for the love of God, I mean this in the nicest way possible, keep it productive. I don't want to see comments of, how out. I understand we will have mixed opinions on whether the manager's time is up, but I would still prefer, as I try and do on these videos that take me so long to put together with stats and facts, to have a constructive opinion on what you think on the pitch or off the pitch in the training ground needs to change to pick up results. That's the sort of conversations I prefer to have as a football fan. Thank you very much for watching. It's just about to get dark, so that was well timed. Now go and try and enjoy your week before Ruud van Nistelrooy's Leicester come to town. Keep the faith. Oh yeah, lads!